Hey guys, Rodrigo, founder, here with another episode of Asheville Real Estate News. Had a great episode today, conversation with Crom Carey. And we just talked about the ins and outs of moving from a full-time job to full-time, in the real estate world. And his approach is the long and steady approach versus the quick fix and flip approach. Super interesting conversation. We just dug into the mindset and some of the questions he wrestled with and what he's doing now with his time and how he's been able to pursue his passion. So take a listen. And as always, let us know what you think. See you all next week. Well, welcome, Crom, man. Super happy to have you here in studio for the first time. I feel like it's been a long time coming, but yeah, happy Monday.
I mean, we've been in cahoots for a couple of years now, so I'm definitely excited to get on the show with you. Thanks, Rodrigo.
Yeah, absolutely. It's excited to hear your story just because, well, it's a good story, A, but B, I think it matches or mirrors what a lot of people's story or thought processes. A lot of the same decisions that you made are ones that I know I wrestled with, and I think a lot of people who are thinking about making a full-time transition not go through. So before we even get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
Who you are, what you're doing now, and maybe how you ended up in Asheville.
Yeah, totally. So born and raised in Knoxville, so Western North Carolina has been kind of a second home to me my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Wound up here 8 years ago. I think it was 2012 in Western North Carolina. Most of my time here, my day job, been working at a kayak manufacturer. Big Adventures. We make Liquid Logic whitewater kayaks and Native Watercraft. That's the fishing brand. I say we. I've been gone for a little while, but it's been a good while there. I'm a whitewater kayaker by hobby, so it was pretty great to be there.
Yeah.
And it was a great place to work, but I kind of caught the real estate bug, and I don't even remember how it even happened.
Do you remember when, though?
I do remember when.
Okay.
I know that before I even bought my first house, I guess it was 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I knew from watching my roommate buy a house, me move in with him, and watching him go through the whole process that I was like, man, I can do this. This seems like a smart thing to do. And I don't remember why I thought it, but I knew that I wanted to buy a house a year for 5 years. Okay. I didn't know what that even looked like, whether I had the means or not. I mean, it seems like a daunting task before you've even bought your first house, but I remember that being in my mind. And it happened. I did end up, spoiler alert, I did buy 5 houses in the first 5 years. But
and these are all for rental purposes, right?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So I bought my house that I live in summer 2016. I bought that house. Everything went pretty well. And then 6 months later, the house across the street, I found out that it was going to be for sale. And I thought that was a little early for me to be jumping right into this. But the girls who were living in there, I was friends with. It was the exact same house as mine. It was across the street. It was kind of a no-brainer. It was going to be super easy to manage that as a rental. So I went ahead and got the house. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. So for a couple years, I was gaining rentals as I was working at the kayak manufacturer before I finally jumped off the wagon and went full-time into the real estate game.
Yeah. Well, prior to 2016,
sure,
your first exposure to it was your friend who bought a house.
Yeah, that was it.
So, and then before that, it was not even on your radar at all.
There's nobody in my family that's done real estate. There's nothing going on there. I think I just had always heard that, 70% of the millionaires in the United States got there via some kind of real estate. And I remember knowing that for a long time.
And just being aware of it.
And being aware that it's a thing. But yeah, nothing really before me buying my first house showed any signs of this.
Before your first house, was your aspiration to leave the kayaking company, or was that a byproduct of kind of being like, oh, wow, this works. This could lead to something I didn't expect?
It's a good question to ask. I would definitely still be at the kayak company right now if I hadn't gotten into real estate. Because it was a great place to work. Yeah. Life was good.
So you weren't trying to leave.
No, I wasn't looking for a way out.
Do something for my future that makes sense.
Exactly.
And then it reversed backward and made sense for the present then, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, being at a place that you really enjoyed working, lined up well with one of your big hobbies, when did that first thought process start going through your mind of like, maybe I need to move on and pursue this real estate thing a little bit more intentionally?
So if I look back, 2016, bought my house. That next, 6 months and 9 months later, I bought rental house number 1 and 2. And at that point, I figured it was just going to be a side hustle, just a little extra cash, and that was great. It probably wasn't until another year into that I thought, this is working. This is definitely working. As I was doing more research into the industry, I was seeing how people turned it into their full-time thing. So I bet it was about a year or so after I, kind of got into it.
And was it a hard decision to wrestle with, or once you saw the, like kind of what the steps looked like, you're like, cool, good, I'm in?
It was kind of it was the latter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in. It wasn't like that on day one, but it just over time it just became more and more apparent that like this isn't rocket science. It really isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I have the means to be a brain surgeon or some kind of crazy engineer, but I think more people than you would think have the ability to do what I do, doing the property management game.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of dissecting this because,
sure.
Again, it's very similar to a lot of people who go through this.
I think it's very relatable.
You have these moments where things start unlocking. Do you remember right around whenever you bought your first rental property, the one across the street? Kind of back then, what were some of the things that were like made you nervous, or were like, ooh, I don't know if I should do this or not, versus some of the same things that give you those feelings now? And is there a gap between the two? If that question
also
makes
good.
sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It's a good question too. The only thing that really made me nervous, I'll say all the things that didn't first. So like I bought the same house. It's a 1960s house. Actually, there's like 10 houses on my street that are all the same thing. I mean, you can look at them. It's window, door, and then a big window into the living room. They're all the same thing. I tinkered around on my house. I like to tinker.
Yeah.
I played with Kinects as a kid instead of playing, sports video games.
Right.
I got to know like the innards of the house and what it was looking like, and it was, it's a stable investment. I knew I did the right thing there. Being able to rent to folks across the street, they were also millennials. They just paid their rent via Venmo.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just go to a website and type up a lease. I mean, I was kind of winging it.
Yeah.
And I come to find that's how everybody starts this. Everybody just totally wings it when they get going.
Yes, that is true.
I don't think I've ever met anybody who right out of the cannon was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But it seemed pretty straightforward. I mean, I knew that I got the house at a good enough deal. I might not go for that kind of deal these days because I'm trying to go for a little bit, better priced, reduced price properties. But it was still, I knew it was good enough. I mean, you can do pretty third grade math to figure out if the numbers are going to work. You just look what your mortgage is and a couple more things. Look at the rent, make sure you got a couple $100 in between to make it worth it, and you're good. The only thing that really made me nervous was just that I wasn't diversifying as far as location goes. I bought my house. 6 months later, I bought the house across the street. 2 months after that, I bought the house 2 doors down from it. And actually, I think another 9 months later, I bought the one across the street from that. So I've got 4 in a 6-house radius right there. And those were my first 4 houses.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was not diversifying. If the interstate comes in and messes it all up, or if West Asheville, which is where all this is, somehow isn't trendy anymore, nobody wants to live there, that was the really only concern I had. The end of your question says compared to what you feel now.
Yeah.
Now I'm totally confident in it.
Right.
I feel good about it all because nothing is nothing is surefire in the real estate world. I'm sure anybody in or out of that industry would know that. But this is about as surefire as I think I'm going to get. Though something like West Asheville is going to be a solid rental market and things are going to be good there. So I feel confident about it now.
So it's fair to say that your investment strategy has been kind of like the long-term play, right?
Totally.
Like you're not going for the home run, knock it out of the park and make X amount of just one deal and cash out and or whatnot, right? You're going for that steady snowball build.
That's what I have been doing.
Right.
I would like 1 or 2 crush it deals and make a whole bunch of money, even if it's outside of it. That would be cool. Yeah. So let me know what you see out there. But
I mean, that's not what you're actively pursuing, right?
Right.
Like if it falls into your lap, you'll take it and run with it, but you're not
No, I'm not trying to get rich tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get rich way down the road.
Yeah.
And it's going to work.
Yeah.
I feel confident about it, but I'm going for the long-term game.
So, I have a little bit of context, always, because we've talked a lot off screen or whatnot. What you did, right now you're full-time this, right? And you kind of had a transition period where you had the opportunity to work on a lot of fix and flips. Is that a fair statement?
Totally, absolutely.
Seeing that business up close, does it make you second guess what you were doing? Or, obviously you're still staying the course, so I'm just wondering if that solidified what your original thought process, or maybe just some lessons from, seeing behind the scenes.
Sure. So the background on that, what I was doing, you mentioned the fix and flip game. That is what I was doing. I left the kayak company about a year ago, and for this last year worked for guys as project manager. So we would buy some rundown house, and I would manage the crew and the whole project from the first day we go in and we clean out the hoarder house to the finished product when we're listing it on the market and we're getting people staging it. So I learned a whole lot on the job. That was invaluable to me. Got to work for a great guy. Learned a whole lot. We still talk. It's a good thing. But I definitely saw, it's not all flowers and rainbows, but you can make some really good money and overnight. The long-term rentals, I'm not going to make bank overnight. One of these flips, you can make a really good return overnight. But as soon as you do that, let's say you make 20 grand on a house or 30 grand on a house, whatever it may be, that's awesome. But then the next day, no more money's coming in, and you gotta keep that thing going, where rentals just already do the job.
Right.
So what I've really learned from it, I kind of learned two things from that. One, I gained the skills to be able to flip a house. Yeah. And kind of like my strategy these days has been, I'm not buying a rental like those first two that already had people living in them, were good to go, they were turnkey.
Yeah.
I'm now buying the houses that need to be rehabbed. Typically, I'm looking for that house that needs to be rehabbed, then I'll fix it up, and then I'll rent it out, and I can get them a lot cheaper that way. I can gain a lot more equity in the house. It's a good strategy. So I've learned the skills of how to flip, but two, I've seen that you can flip to sell as well. I'm actually in the middle of my first flip to sell right now. My strategy has not moved 100% in that direction. I'm still focusing on the long-term rental, but I think this would complement it well.
Right, just sprinkle in a few here and there.
Exactly. That helps. If I can flip a house and get a bunch of cash out of it, that's going to help me in my next investment, because instead of having to borrow money from other people and not making as much return, I can use the own money that I've made
to go do that.
Exactly.
What's been your favorite thing since you've been on your own, and maybe what's been the worst thing about being on your own? From a worst
famous last words, I haven't had a worst thing yet, but it's only been 3 months. So next. So
you haven't no downsides yet that you.
When we go to this on round 2, I'm sure I'll have a laundry list. So we'll go over that. But it's been great. I really I think I'm somebody who was destined to be self-employed. It only took me 10 years, but I eventually got there.
Yeah.
I've loved a lot about it. I like the freedom. I like of knowing my own schedule.
Yeah.
My cousin's coming into town from Chicago, and he asked me to pick him up at the airport at 11 on a Friday in Greenville. Yeah. I can just do that. The freedom's great. I find myself, even though I'm that freedom's great, I do find myself working more than I was before. But it's work that I like, because I know I'm working for me, and it's something I can be very proud of.
Yeah, on that note, I don't even remember who this quote is from. I want to say it was Darren Hardy, but don't quote me. But he said entrepreneurs are the only people who give up a 40-hour work week to work 80 hours.
That's spot on. I find it's hard for me.
It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but I think it's insightful to what the ripple effect is of going in on your own.
There's definitely truth to it. It's hard for me just to not work on Saturday and on Sunday. Yeah. But I'm doing my best to try to
figure out that balance.
Exactly.
But it gives you the opportunity to do things that you love, right?
Absolutely.
Have you found that there's been a passion, kayaking or something else, that you feel like you've kind of been able to reignite and really explore because you have this flexibility?
The one that I'm looking forward to, that I'm getting geared up for now, actually, is getting back on my bike.
I support that.
Yeah, I know you do, which is great. I was a mountain biker for 10 years before I ever got my first kayak. Funny story, I bought a kayak because it was another cool thing to put on my roof rack. Yeah. And a week later, my really nice mountain bike got stolen. And so
by default?
Then I was a kayaker.
So I got in. So I used to kayak almost exclusively before I biked. And I learned in Canada, it was a little bit more not big water, but definitely not like creeky like a lot of the stuff is here.
That's right.
Like most of the rivers there were like at least the size of like the Nantahala or
Voluminous
French Broad,
rivers.
Some big, right? They're not. And I'd never even seen a creek boat until I moved here, and I was like, I don't know if I like this anymore. And then I had one other friend I boated with a lot, and he got into biking, sold his boat.
Sure.
And then I was like, well, all right, never really liked the creek boat thing very much. And that's how I got into it. It was just like happenstance. Either way, very long tangent.
And that's how it happens sometimes, though, is like that happenstance thing. I mean, I kind of got into real estate kind of via happenstance.
Yeah.
I mean, it was on my mind, but it just kind of snowballed and just happened. The last, if you think about the last 2 years of me working at the kayak company while still hustling on the side hustle of the real estate game, I was really working at 80. That's when I was working the most.
Right.
Because I still was working probably 50 hours a week at the kayak game.
And then
on the side, I was trying to build up a portfolio that was big enough that I could leave a job and live off of that rent. So that's when I was working the most. And, I had been a pretty avid whitewater kayaker. At the peak of my career, I was boating 80-something days a year, going to South America every other year on trips and all that jazz. And those 2 years I was just talking about were the years that I kind of stopped kayaking so much. And, a bunch of my friends were all throwing some shade on me for not boating so much. But I told them, I was like, guys, I'm putting in the time right now to build this so that when I quit my job, then I can kayak as much as I want.
And it was, I bet you feel really good about that 2-year decision window, right?
I feel great about the decision. I hate that it's been 3 months self-employed and I've only boated once.
but I mean, I'm sure you've been able to do other things, right?
Absolutely.
Like sometimes, there's a lot of options, especially living here in Asheville, that you can. It's hard to narrow down where you want to.
It's true.
Spend the excess time, right? That's not spent working. So
honestly, like I'm the most of anything in my life. I'm the most excited about doing the real estate game right now. It's my new thing that I'm stoked about. So flipping this house has been fun.
Good. Yeah. I totally get it. It's always like, well, what else would you be doing other than, right? And I never know what else that would answer to that question would be. Maybe there's something out there.
I still go see a lot of music.
Yeah.
That's my other passion that I really have had my whole life. I haven't run out of steam there at all. I was in Nashville over the weekend seeing some shows. The previous weekend I saw a show in Asheville. The previous weekend before that, 2 shows in Nashville. Next weekend I'm going to New York City for shows. Yeah. And the show I'm going to is on a Tuesday, and I was able to do it. I didn't have to ask my boss so I could leave to go to the show. So
didn't have to think about it too much.
I am. The rewards are coming in.
Yeah. What have you found to be the best way to kind of just keep your finger on the pulse for real estate, like for learning and for not getting stuck in just one way of doing things? Like, what are you doing for your quote unquote, let's call it continuing education?
The number one thing I'm doing is I don't ever stop talking about real estate. And it's to my mom, to my dad, my sister, my girlfriend, they're all tired of hearing about it now. But every person I meet, whether it's a stranger or a buddy that is in real estate or that isn't, I bring up real estate and I'm constantly talking about that. And like that's the thing that has opened the door to so many other places that I've found information. I went to, I'm trying to even think. I brought up real estate to a friend of mine named Chris Hargis. He said he was going to a networking event. I was like, okay, I'm going to the networking event. And then I met different people there. I think that might even be where I met you. I don't even remember, honestly. It's been a couple of years now. But
yeah, I think the first time we connected was actually over the phone for a couple of times, but I'm not sure if that's accurate.
That might be right.
That's what my memory is, but
that's, I think, then where I had heard of you was at that event. But nonetheless, the point is that just talking about it all the time. And by talking to different people, somebody will recommend a podcast or a book or whatever they may be doing. And I mean, that's the biggest thing.
And then you just follow that down until you run into something else. No, man. Well, I think that's the networking component. Obviously, we're big believers of it.
No doubt. It's fun to network and talk about real estate. I mean, if you're excited about kayaking, you want to go talk to people about kayaking. If real estate's your thing,
if you can get, that, because you never know who's going to say that one thing, ask the one question, or make that one connection that unlocks everything else. But yeah, any closing thoughts? Maybe something we didn't touch on, or a story that's worth sharing, or anything like that for anybody who's listening in?
Yeah, I'll throw in a story that's the funny one. So the best deal, and I think I know that you know where I'm going to go with this, but I think the best deal that I ever did was a house that I bought in Flat Rock. outside Hendersonville. All of my houses are in West Asheville. They're all in walking distance of my house, except for this one outlier way down in Hendersonville or Flat Rock.
Yeah.
I bought it with, from you, working with you and Nolan.
Yeah.
Showed up to look at the house one day. It was rainy, kind of ugly day. Toured around the house. It was rough around the edges, but it seemed like a good deal. We came up on a price and made us both win, and that was good. Show up on the day to close, and I look in the backyard, and there are 3 pigs, live pigs in the backyard. So I said, what are the 3 pigs doing here? You go, well, don't worry about those. They're going to go away. And what it was is that, the owner had left pigs, and you and I worked together getting those off the property. But I'd never bought a house that came with live animals.
Yeah, that was, pigs was the first. We had to deal with other things. And just for the record, Nolan did all the heavy lifting and made that creative solution, make it happen on that. And, happy pigs are somewhere else now, thankfully.
I think they are.
Yeah. That was a funny one.
But it was a funny one.
There's not like a handbook on how to work through that.
No.
Yeah, that is
pig removal for dummies. Yeah.
Well, now you got an ebook or something
a good story
to be written out of it.
But it was good enough that I wanted to keep working with you. I know we've done some other deals as well, so it's
No, as well. Always a pleasure and always fun to put things together. So
yeah, no doubt.
Well, closing remarks. Go buy houses.
The closing remark I'd say is if this is something, to our listeners and viewers out there, if it's something that you're interested in doing, it's way more tangible than you would think. Buying one house isn't rocket science. If you can't find the money, look up all the different resources on how you can actually buy a house with low or no money down. They're out there. Like, anybody can do this. It's just if you really want to do it, like, you can do it.
No, I think that's a really good place to close. And so go out there, guys. Is anybody wants to connect with you? Are you easily available, or do you kind of?
No, I'm definitely easily available. Probably go to social media. You can go to Facebook. You can go to Instagram. My name's Crom, as in Cromwell. If you type in CROM, I'm probably the only Crom on the social media, so you'll find me. And I would love for anybody out there to reach out.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Well, there you go, guys. Thanks for tuning in. As always, thank you for listening. Please share this episode, tag a friend, leave us a rating and a review. It means so much to us. And see you guys all on the next one. Take care.